The first time Samuel touched me, it was by accident, a glass slipping, our fingers colliding in the blue after hours light of my coffee shop. It wasn't dramatic. No crash, no gasp. Just the thinnest click of glass and the shock of warmth, traveling from his skin into mine, clean as the note of a jazz piano at closing time. I pulled my hand back, pretended to check for streaks, and discovered I was breathing. As if I'd run somewhere. I'm Nancy. I turned 50 last winter, the first birthday I spent without my husband. He left me the lease, the grinder, and a roast profile in his handwriting. Taped inside the cabinet door, a map of heat and patience. Most mornings I still follow it exactly, not because I'm superstitious, but because there are rituals that keep your bones from rattling. Unlock the door. Flip the sign. Lights, then the soft growl of the grinder. Wipe the counter with slow circles until the cloth comes up clean. Let the first brew breathe a little longer than necessary and pour it into a chipped mug that nobody else notices but me. That mug holds more than coffee. It holds the days I didn't think I could do this alone. People say my place has charm, which is what small towns say when they mean a thing is older than they are and refuses to apologize. My floors creak. The windows fog when it rains. The bell over the door is too bright for mornings and too honest at night. You can find me here at 6:30, apron tied, hair twisted up with a pencil, pretending not to eavesdrop on regulars who think the counter makes them invisible. Samuel started coming in 2 years ago, maybe 3. Time bends in a shop like this, it scrolls past quietly like steam. He's somewhere in his early 60s, tall in that way. That makes door frames look smaller. The first month he hardly looked up. Black coffee, newspaper. The long silence of a man learning to live in an echo. People whispered that his wife had died the previous autumn. Small towns deliver bad news like it's a casserole, warm, heavy, and impossible to refuse. He tipped too much and said too little. I recognized the shape of his quiet. Grief can spot its own across a room. He started answering when I asked questions that didn't require answers. Cold morning? Road work still out by the church? You want the Sumatra today or the house blend? His voice was low and steady, the kind you trust to read maps in the dark. Eventually we learned each other's patterns. He took his coffee black but wasn't precious about it. He folded his newspaper with hospital corners. He smiled with his eyes first. And when the bell over the door was too honest at night, he stayed a minute longer, as if his leaving might tip the whole place into the kind of silence neither of us wanted to meet head on. I didn't notice when he moved from customer to person. I count on, only that I started counting on someone again, which felt both dangerous and practical. The dangerous part arrived in tiny flashes. The way his hand flattened the day's paper. And I could see the strength that doesn't brag. The way he listened, really listened, when I talked about the weather. As if the weather were something I could control. The way he watched me grind beans. Like I was performing a small ceremony instead of doing what I do every morning. And every afternoon, and on Saturdays twice as often. On the night our fingers collided, the day had been busy. Soccer kids, a book club that argued about the ending before they'd reached it. 2 men from the hardware store, swearing their loyalty to pumpkin spice like it was a sports team. I'd forgotten to eat lunch. My feet ached in the stubborn way that belongs to women who stand for a living. The bell over the door had finally gone quiet, and I'd flipped the sign. The jazz playlist had slipped into the hour, where the piano sounds like a companion and not a performer. I was lining up the glasses to dry when Samuel said, "Let me help." "I've got it," I said automatically, the reflex of a woman who has been fine for so long. The word learned to fit her mouth like a retainer. "I know you do." He took the towel from the stack, not asking again. "Humor me." He moved behind the counter like someone easing into a church pew in a town not his own, careful, respectful, aware that not every space belongs to him. That's when the glass slid. And our fingers met, the simplest contact, the smallest spark. I made some joke about butterfingers. He said nothing, just handed me the glass. As if the moment had given it a different weight. We worked in a hush that wasn't empty. Outside, Main Street smoothed itself into evening. The last bus sighed through the intersection. Someone's dog barked twice and reconsidered. The coffee smell lingered, softer now. No longer a call to arms but a benediction. I could feel the shape of his presence behind me, not pressing, just there, like a warm coat you didn't know you needed until the temperature dropped. "Busy day," he said. "Good busy," I answered, which is the kind of lie that's mostly true. Good because people came, because the register balanced, because the lights would stay on another month. Busy because every cup I pour takes a little of me with it. And there are nights I get home and sit on the edge of the bed, feeling like a wall that holds up a house no one lives in anymore. He set a row of glasses mouth down, straight as a parade. "You ever sit and have a cup here after closing?" he asked. I shook my head. "By the time I flip the sign, I'm a ghost." "Then maybe," he said, and I could hear him smile without looking up, "tonight you could haunt your own table." Something in me unlatched. I reached for the house blend tin, my husband's handwriting still taped inside the door, and then my hand stopped. I didn't want the past tense to pour this cup. I wanted the present to do it. I pulled a fresh bag from the shelf. New beans, bright scent, the smell of oranges when you break them in winter. "Sit," I told him, and my voice was steadier than my heart. "I'll make it the way I like it." "The way you like it," he repeated, as if trying on a phrase he hadn't had a reason to say in a long time. I rinsed the filter, bloomed the grounds, and watched the coffee swell and breathe. There's a moment in every pour over where the surface trembles, as if deciding whether it will let itself become something else. I know that moment too well. I've lived there for years. He sat at the counter where he always sits, but the room had shifted a fraction. Maybe it was the flipped sign, or the piano finding a slower swing, or the fact that the day had finally stopped asking things of me. I set a cup in front of him, kept one for myself, and we didn't toast because toasts belong to people who claim occasions out loud. We simply drank. "This is different," he said after a sip. "It's the same beans," I said. But I didn't rush the water. He nodded like he understood exactly what that meant and exactly what it didn't. We didn't talk about our spouses. We almost never do. Grief is a room with 2 doors and no windows. Sometimes the kindest thing is to stand with someone in the hallway. Instead, we talked about small things that were not small. The relief of rain after a hot week, the bakery 2 towns over that still makes real cinnamon rolls, the church's new ramp that finally makes Sunday mornings easier for the woman with the green hat. He laughed once, soft, the kind of laugh that doesn't echo, and my hands tightened on the warm ceramic because I wanted to hold that sound still. When the cups were half empty and the street outside was down to porch lights and distant TV flickers, he looked at the bell over the door, as if it might judge us. "May I stay a little longer?" he asked. The bell said nothing. The room did not shift again, it had already shifted. I could have said no out of habit. I could have said yes out of loneliness. Instead I said, "I was hoping you would." And discovered both truths could live in one sentence without fighting. That was the night I realized the shop was more than the place I kept open for other people. It was also where my pulse returned to me, one quiet beat at a time. And as Samuel lifted his cup and I lifted mine, the steam rose between us like a curtain that knew it was time to part. I didn't mean to watch him the way I did that night. The cup in his hand, the steady way he breathed in the steam, the way his shoulders seemed to lower, as if the weight he carried finally gave him permission to rest. These weren't things I was supposed to notice. Customers don't belong to me. Not even regulars. But Samuel wasn't just a customer anymore. Somewhere along the line, he'd become part of the fabric of my days. "I used to help my wife with the dishes," he said suddenly, as if plucking a memory from the quiet. "She'd wash, I'd dry. I was terrible at it." The smile that curved his mouth was both sweet and sad, and I felt the echo of it in my chest. I wanted to say I know that kind of terrible. I know the small domestic failures that turn into love stories over time. But instead, I let my hand rest on the counter and offered him a look that I hoped said all of that without words. He set his cup down and reached for one of the glasses I'd missed. "Let me," he murmured. So we worked side by side, me wiping down tables, him polishing glasses with a care that surprised even him. Every so often, our shoulders would almost brush. The silence between us wasn't heavy, it was alive, charged, humming like the low notes of the jazz drifting through the speakers. When our fingers touched again, this time over the rim of a damp glass, it wasn't accidental. Not completely. The glass wobbled between us, but neither of us let go right away. Heat bloomed in my hand, and for a moment I thought the glass might crack from it. "Sorry," I whispered. "Don't be," he said, his eyes holding mine longer than they ever had. I pulled my hand back, my poo